The average solo GP is dead. Being handcuffed to a practice that only makes money while you're drilling crushes your freedom. Being trapped at the office is no way to experience life. And doing more fillings and crowns ain't the answer to freedom. Stop it. Freedom comes when your practice makes money without you. Freedom is choosing how many days and how you dental. Ready to forge your freedom? Then keep listening to become a super GP and super CEO. This is the Titanium Practice Podcast with your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Let's go.
Hello, all you beautiful people out there, and welcome to the Thunderdome that is Free For All Friday here on the Titanium Practice Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Thank you so much for joining us. And what we are going to do on Free For All Fridays is we are just going to have a mishmash of different topics that we are going to talk about here today. I'm not even exactly sure as I start this all out exactly all the things that we're going to be talking about. But to start off, topic number one, Super Bowl just passed. Apparently the highest rated TV show ever in the United States, which is pretty impressive. And I'm sure everyone's best friend, Taylor Swift, helped make that happen to increase the number of women who were checking it out, which is awesome. And my daughter, as I've mentioned before, is a huge T-Swift fan, so she actually watched the Super Bowl with me for the very first time, which was pretty cool because she was cheering pretty hard, and I actually wanted San Francisco to win. But since she was cheering so hard for the Chiefs, I had to get on my red and cheer on for the Chiefs that day. They said that more than 200 million people, 202 million people tuned in at some point in time to watch that. That's roughly 2/3 of the United States, which is just absolutely insane when you think about it. So good for them. The money train keeps rolling along for the NFL. I'm sure Roger Goodell will get another gigantic contract, and things are looking good for them. But the reason I'm talking about the Super Bowl right now is because they kept using this term GOAT for our man, Patrick Mahomes. And he's really good. There's no two ways about it. But I would be super thrilled, and the person who I think would be the GOAT would be if we could get one person to make everybody stop using that term, and they would be the GOAT for sure, because I am absolutely sick of hearing about it. And I think we all know that Brady has accomplished more than Mahomes at this point in time anyway, so there's no even point in talking about it. So I'm done talking about that. But what it really made me start to think about, and what I want you guys to kind of think about from this standpoint is when I set out to do anything, is that I had never, ever even thought about being the best at what I could do. When I went through school, I knew an A was 90%. That's what I need to do to get an A. All right, cool. Well, you got to have a fudge factor in there. There's no way that you're going to hit 90% on the nose. So I said, all right, I need to actually get 92% to get an A, because you're going to get some questions wrong that you didn't think you were going to get wrong. And so I had always kind of looked to see that was my goal, to get a 92% so that it would actually end up coming out in the wash and I get somewhere around 90, 91%, but I get the A. Hooray, straight A's. That's awesome. Very good. All with doing 90%. But that absolutely gave you the exact same scorecard as potentially a kid sitting next to you that was trying to be the greatest. So was trying to get 100% and killed themselves over getting that perfect score or trying to be perfect. There are so many things that you need to do in the office, so many things that you need to be doing in life. You're never going to be the greatest at it. It's impossible. There's just so many things to accomplish that if you let perfection get in your way of accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish, you're never going to get there. Really good is really good. And if you can do a whole bunch of things really, really well, I mean, my God, you are going to accomplish so much in this world. You are going to be the envy of everybody, and you are going to be as happy as you possibly can be. But if you're always striving for perfection, man, you are going to be miserable. You are going to be absolutely miserable. 90% is really freaking good. Like, really good. It accomplishes it. If you're in the top 90% of income levels, which I'm betting most of you who are listening to this are, you're really well off. You're doing great. And it stinks because a lot of the topics we're talking about are how to actually improve your take-home income, improve your time off. But God, if you're a dentist, you're already in that. You're already in that top 10%. So how do we improve upon that without necessarily going insane about the absolute perfection of everything? So I don't want you to get caught up too much in the details every single time about the things that you're doing. Just look at the broad picture. Pick up so many, I like to use this term of a little bit every day over a long period of time. If you just make small changes, they will account for a huge change if you keep making those changes over a long period of time. Another thing is if there's a project that needs to be done and there's always that right-hand person next to you that's able to do the projects, there's kind of this other concept of the 10-80-10 rule. Okay, this isn't the 80-20 principle, this is the 10-80-10 rule of the fact of you come up with your basic idea and you hand it off to your person who does your projects. And they're going to do almost all the work for you, and they're going to bring it back when they're done with it, and then you can put your final personal spin on it. And I guarantee you it's not going to come out exactly like how you believed it was going to come out. It never will. But if you do every single project out there, you'll never get hardly anything done. But if you start the project at the 10%, get the idea kind of cooking and bubbling and just hand it off for a little bit and then get it back when it's nearly completed and you put your final spin on it, man, you will get so much more accomplished that way. And as long as you can let go of that general 10% of what it would take for you to be able to accomplish it from start to finish on your own, you'll get so much more done. So keep that in mind. I mean, at the end of the day, you're not going to be perfect. You're going to get so much less done, and you're going to have so much more stress if you're always trying to make everything perfect and you're trying to be the GOAT about absolutely everything. And frankly, you're just not going to be. And that's okay. I've accomplished an enormous amount in my life by always kind of shooting for what do I need to get to have a really good result. And in school, that was a 90%. And I got it. I got it almost every single time. And it was pretty damn easy to do. And I had a pretty stress-free life because I knew that was a very attainable goal and it was something that I could accomplish without too much work. Okay? So let's put that term to bed of the GOAT. Sick of hearing it. But keep that in mind that we don't need to be striving for perfection on everything that we're doing. All right? Next topic. The other day, I was told, normally what I do on a weekend night is we have a group of about 4 families, and we all live really, really close to each other. Our community is a golf cart community, so we literally just pop into everybody's house and just drive around on golf carts, go over there and, hang out with our friends. Everyone's got kids, and it's just this mess. I mean, just, the adults go sit off and we'll play either like a card game or maybe like Trivial Pursuit. I love trivia. And then the kids are just running around and being loud. And I know I already used that term Thunderdome earlier, but that is kind of where I got that term from, is just listening to those kids, just freaking out, being loud, being kids, being outside. It's just a wonderful thing to see, and I live in an awesome community. It's so cool to see that. So we normally go over there, have a couple of adult beverages, have a good night, and then wander on home. But then someone told me that we were not doing that this past Friday night. I was pretty pissed. I was like, no, kind of like my routine. I have fun doing it. That's why we do it. And what we were doing is we were going to do a school fundraiser, and we were going to go roller skating at the local roller rink. I was pissed. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to go roller skating. But I got there and they're just like, well, to get in, you get to go roller skating, whether you're going to pay the same amount, whether you go roller skating or not. It includes the rentals, the skates. I'm like, whatever, fine, I'll throw these on. I did not go dressed to go roller skating, which not that I was going to get fancy dressed up or anything like that, but I knew it was, some physical activity. But I had a long sleeve shirt on. Yes, it actually gets cold in Florida. Some jeans on, but I went out there and I had an absolute blast. It was so much freaking fun. I was going around. Apparently, I'm an okay roller skater. I didn't even remember that or know that. But apparently, I'm pretty good at it. But by the time I was done, the shirt that I was wearing was gray, and it was just sopping wet with sweat. Yep, pretty gross. but I had an absolute blast doing it. And I was really glad that we had changed up our routine and I had tried something different. And that's what I want to say to you is try different things. Get out there, get out of your rut, and make sure that you are trying different things daily. I mean, it'd be great. I'm not telling you to go roller skating every day, but I'm saying go out and try that. When's the last time you went roller skating? I mean, it sounds dumb, but I had so much fun doing it. I'm just like, well, okay, go roller skating. What are other things that you remember maybe doing in your childhood that you can be doing now that brought you a lot of joy? I'll never forget when I was driving in the suburbs of Chicago, and it was during December. So it was cold and rainy and wet, and it was raining. And I was driving by, and I got stopped at the stoplight, and I remember looking at the corner, and there was a mom and a daughter waiting to get picked up at the bus stop. And the mom is wet. She's got her umbrella, but she's wet. It's cold out. It's like that 35-degree rain. And she just has this look on her face where she's just utterly miserable. Her daughter, I don't know, maybe she's like 3 years old. She's holding her hand, and the daughter's got her little rain boots on with no umbrella, and she's just jumping around in the puddles. Sheer, just unadulterated joy coming from this kid's face from jumping in a puddle. And it struck me of like, how do we let ourselves lose that joy? How do we let ourselves get out of that feeling as we grow old? I mean, I guess, you just become an adult and all of a sudden, realize that the world can be a pretty mean place at times, and you just let that kind of slowly but surely chip away at all the joy that you have. But try to find something different. Try to find something that brings you a great deal of joy, and you may need to go back to your childhood in order to find whatever that thing is. Because, gosh, there's just so many things that we did. Like, do you play video games? I loved video games as a kid. I mean, I'd sat on a couch. I remember there was... I remember I was setting up Civilization as a computer game, trying to take over the world. A lot of you probably know what I'm talking about. But I remember as a kid, I'd been setting up for this big battle for so long. And my sister called me and said, hey, she was part of this play, and there was a lady this girl in the cast that she wanted me to go down and meet, to hook us up, whatever. And I remember I was just like, I've spent so much time in setting up for this big battle. I'd really like to see how it goes. And she just said, get off your ass and come down here and meet this cute girl. And she was gorgeous. I mean, she was a gorgeous lady, and I was an idiot for wanting to sit there. But that's how much I loved video games, and how much from something in my childhood that I need to do more of. I need to do more of those things that brought me a great deal of joy. As lame as that is that I'd rather play a video game than go meet this really hot chick. At the same time, I said to myself, I'm having a lot of fun doing this. So what can you do now that brings you a lot of joy, or brought you a lot of joy when you were younger, or that you used to do, that you feel like time has taken away from you now, either because you have your own kids you got to take care of, you have the worries of the practice stopping you from doing it. What can you do to bring back to make sure that we bring in more joy, but then also to try different things, because it becomes different now. I go into a roller rink as a kid, and I grew up in the 80s, so it was probably a little bit different, but it was right next to the mall. So we'd go hang out with the friends, we'd go roller skating at times, which was, like I said, right next to it. The cool kid during their birthday, if they had their birthday party here, they got to sit in this big skate and go around the roller rink in this giant skate that they'd get to sit in, and everyone's singing happy birthday to them. I mean, there's just a lot of joy that came from that. What can you bring to today to help fulfill that feeling for you again? And then what can you do differently, something that you haven't tried before? And obviously, whenever you try something new, it might suck. We went to this new restaurant. I'm not a huge fan of going out to fancy dinners. I'm a pretty simple, I love Five Guys. It's like my favorite restaurant. But I'd much rather have that Like my son and I will go to Five Guys and we play chess together. So we eat peanuts before the hamburgers come up, and then we finish up our chess while we're eating our hamburgers. And I'd much rather have Five Guys than go out to fancy dinner. Well, we went to this fancy new restaurant. We had to Uber down there, get dressed up, and all that stuff. And everyone raved about this place. You could not get in. There's a 2.5-month wait to get into this restaurant. But one of my associate doctors, actually two of the associate doctors had said something about, hey, you need to go to this place. It's amazing. Got to try it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. We'll do it. We finally got in with one of our other couple friends. We went down and did it, and it was so mediocre, and I was just mad because it cost a lot of money, and it was just not something I wanted to do. And I got there, and it was a dud. I wish I hadn't actually gone, but it's not even so much the money; it's just the build up and going to do it that I just wish we hadn't done it. So sometimes they fall flat on their face, but sometimes you absolutely find something that you will absolutely love and you want to do it again and again and again. And we just need to find more of those things. And it's about having those experiences. And you hear me talk about experiences all the time now. You have to have those experiences in order to really appreciate life and do what you can in this world. And speaking of falling flat on your face, before I move on to the next thing, is one of the fathers that was out there roller skating fell and broke his wrist. So I am done roller skating, as much fun as I absolutely had going around the rink, but one of the folks there fell and broke their wrist, and I said, I really don't want to have to go through that. So that was the end of my roller skating, but I had an absolutely fun time doing it. But see what experiences you can find that are new, or maybe something that you can bring from your childhood to make your life a little bit better. All right, so that's the end of that topic. Last one that I think we're going to talk about here today, Fat Tuesday just happened. So I love New Orleans. If you haven't been, you have to go. It's a great food town. It's different food than you're most likely used to if you haven't ever been there before. But I would absolutely recommend anybody go to New Orleans. It's a fantastic time between the food. I mean, the architecture is really cool. You're just in a totally different setting than your typical modern city that you see in the United States. When you're down in the French Quarter, it's very cool. The beignets are totally worth at Cafe Du Monde, waiting in the long line in order to get them. The whole setup is absolutely amazing. I strongly recommend that for any vacation. So Fat Tuesday goes along with Mardi Gras, which is why I'm talking about New Orleans. But what Fat Tuesday represents is your last chance to really indulge prior to Lent. So, Lent starts the next day then, and you're really supposed to find something that I was always raised that during Lent you were always supposed to find something that you wanted to give up. Okay, a sacrifice that you needed to make. And this isn't a religious rant, but what it is it's the idea of thinking about what can you go without? What should you give up? And that can be either in your practice. Is there an employee that you need to give up? Is there a responsibility that you need to give up? Are there projects that you need to give up? So we were talking earlier, that 10-80-10 principle. What can you give to someone to get started and then let it come back to you so that you can finish it up and make it the way you want it to be? Because the more you can give up, whether it's team members, whether it's work that you're doing in the office, it makes the system work better. A lot of the time, you are the bottleneck in your practice. You're the reason that the practice is not moving forward. It's crazy, and it took me a long. I am a control freak. I have to drive everywhere we go. My wife almost never drives. The only time she ever drives is if I've had something to drink while I'm out. It's the only time I ever do not drive. So I like controlling things, and it was very, very difficult for me to let go of things. I've referenced my couch before, though, of the idea of the 3 ladies that I worked with, where I was able to start feeling comfortable with them, of knowing that if I gave things to them, that I freed up myself. I freed up the office to do things, it became something where my life got easier and the office grew. But I'll tell you right now, you're the bottleneck of the practice. So there's something that you need to be giving up in order for the practice to absolutely thrive. So I want you to think about that over the next month, or what are some things that you can be giving up in order to make your life and practice better. As far as your personal life is concerned, what can you give up? Do you need to be giving up like more days at the office? Do you need to say, you know what, I want to find out what it's like if I cut a day a month. I mean, start with a day a month. Everyone's always like, well, I'll go down from working 5 days to 4 days, or 4 days to 3 days. It doesn't need to be every single week. What does it look like if you do that once a month or once a quarter? God, it doesn't need to be a set regimented schedule every single time. We almost fall into this this rut or dogma of it needs to be the same way every single time. What if you took a week off every quarter? What would happen? I'll tell you right now, I know exactly what will happen is your production's not going to change. It's not. It's just going to be done on different days. That's the only thing that's going to happen. But for the longest time, that's what it took me. I went from working 5 days a week to 4 days a week to 3 days a week to 2 days a week to 1 day a week. And I never saw a change in the money coming in. And now some of that had to be intentional as far as that's concerned. I had to switch to doing higher dollar procedures and then go back and reintroduce the general dentistry with associates in order to make that all happen. But my income never changed. But I sure spent a whole lot more time at home or going on vacations and doing things that were a whole lot more fun than doing dentistry. I used to live out at the beach, and I'd go, I'd go in for a day, and then, we'd putz around the rest of the time doing whatever we wanted to the rest of the week. And my income was exactly the same as it was before. So it's all very possible, but you have to figure out what you need to give up in order to make that all happen. Maybe you need to be giving up more time with your family so that you can spend more alone time. I get very, very, very little alone time. And some of that's by design of the fact I love my kids. I spend all the time that I can with my kids. But sometimes I feel almost, I don't want to use the term guilted into doing it, but I feel like I have to go and spend time with them. I'm very acutely aware of the fact that they will be gone from the house at some point in time, and I want to soak up as much of that time as I can. But sometimes I do a bad job of making sure that I do set time aside from myself. For the most part, going to and from the office in the car, and then actually exercising, then podcasting are really the only times that I do spend time by myself. And I need to do a better job of that. So that's something I need to work on. And maybe you need to be doing the same thing. You need to be giving up more family time. And, conversely, maybe it's the opposite of that. Maybe you need to be giving up more alone time and spending more time with your family. It can be overwhelming running a business. It absolutely can be. And you just want to have that time to decompress. But if you take that time to decompress when you come home and you're ignoring your family, that can cause a pretty big problem. And it creates this separation and distance between you and your family that ultimately might make things worse. So, everyone's different. Everyone spends their own time the way that they want to be spending or the way they think they want to be spending their own time. But it's important to every once in a while sit back and maybe reevaluate what it is that you need to be giving up. Maybe you need to be giving up that alone time, or maybe you need to be giving up a little bit of family time so that you are always rested, energized, and ready to go to not just give them your full attention and thought process, but then also to the office as well, so that when you're there, you knew you took care of the things that were at the house that needed to be done. We took care of the banking, we took care of everything, and you can be present in what it is that you're doing. And sometimes in order to be present, we need to give up something in there along the way in order to make that all happen. Okay? So those are kind of my 3 thoughts for this Free-for-All Friday here. I want to encourage you that if you want to get the book that is at Titanium Practice Podcast, that is a free download for all of you if you want to get that. We also have some message boards and community over there. If you want to get started with all of that, please head on over to Titanium Practice Podcast, or I'm sorry, titaniumpractice.com, and we can get you all set up with that. But I love having you all here. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and we will see you next week. All right. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Bye.
You've been listening to the Titanium Practice Podcast with your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Please hit the like and subscribe button and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Titanium Practice. Questions or comments? Send an email to info@titaniumpractice.com. Join us next time to help turn your average practice into a titanium practice.